warfare is about the demise of American manufacturing. And we're doing it with a group of Hindu American entrepreneurs who really built one of the great industries in this country, PCB board manufacturing and assembly. And you guys came over here you went to engineering school. We didn't have anybody give you capital. Nobody give you a break. You did it with your own entrepreneurship, your own grit, your own determination. And the question gets to be, how did this industry just kind of disappear? How did it become from $70 billion where it is today? It's the same policies of Wall Street and the elites in our country. And that's what we're here today to talk about. But what I'm proudest about, you have Hindu American entrepreneurs that came here and helped build this industry. And the name of the presentation is American Manufacturing, right? It shows you the greatness of the assimilation process and what the Hindu Americans have added to this country. So with that, we're going to have a full presentation. I'll talk to you a little bit later.
I would like to request Chairman Brian Kennedy to come and make some remarks. Chairman Kennedy.
Good.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, everyone, for coming on a Saturday and being here. It's an honor to be here with so many Americans who worry about their country and are concerned about their future. It's an honor to be with you, Shelley, and with people who really care about this country, like Steve Bannon and Frank Gaffney and others who helped me organize this. It's a sign, really, that our country is in trouble, that on a Saturday, hardworking people have to come together and talk about the threat to the country that China presents. At various times in our history, there has been something called the Committee on the Present Danger, which Steve mentioned. Does that help? This Committee on the Present Danger was started in the 1950s to help explain President Truman's national security policy. And in the 70s, it was brought together a group of national security intellectuals, public policy scholars, and concerned patriots to try to understand what the Soviet threat was and to explain to the American people what would need to be done if we were going to meet the Soviet threat. Ronald Reagan was a member of the Committee on the Present Danger, and he and 39 of his colleagues from the committee went into the Reagan administration and together made policy, rebuilt the American military, and brought down the Soviet Union. That was a great achievement. As we look out today on what this government's doing, thank God President Trump was elected with the fine work of Steve Bannon and Shelley and others. But President Reagan is all alone in trying to understand what the threat from communist China is to America. Today, the Chinese Communist Party is able to control 1.4 billion people and to use it to wage economic and information war against the United States. They steal our intellectual property, they have forced technology transfers, and they are doing everything in their power to make sure they are the preeminent power on earth. We think on the Committee on the Present Danger China that this is not adequately understood by our countrymen, that American policymakers get large donations from business people who do business in China. And so American business and political elites get corrupted by their interaction with the Chinese. And that's unfortunate, because over the last 3 decades, we've made communist China very rich, and we've done it at the expense of the American people. The purpose of this committee is really to explain to our countrymen those existential threats that the communist Chinese present, and to change the policies to help Donald Trump, to help the Congress understand what will be required make sure that America remains the preeminent economic and military power on earth. Because if one thing is for certain, it is that the United States remains the defender of individual liberty and human freedom on earth. We have a good friend in India. India is a democracy that is prosperous and becoming ever more so. It is intolerable, to be clear, from the point of view of the Communist Chinese, that remains so. They have no strategic interest in either India being free or prosperous. And so that the interests of the United States and the interests of India are very much the same. And that is to make sure that the free world is defended, that we are capable of deterring the Communist Chinese from believing that they can somehow harm the United States or India. And it's our purpose here today in this meeting to try to explain to you what we have been studying, to get your help, because we need you adding your voices to ours to make sure that our countrymen understand the gravity of the situation. With that, let me thank again Shali for having us here today. And I look forward to being with you.
Thank you. Speaker Newt Gingrich, your honorary chairman of RHC, he very much wanted to be here, but schedule did not allow, and was very short notice in a way. But he has sent a message that I would like to have you listen to.
I want to thank my good friend Shali Kumar for giving me this opportunity and inviting me to talk with you, but I also want to thank each of you for being involved as citizens. It's very, very important that we hear your voices. The fact is that we're in a tremendous competition with China, that the Chinese in many different ways cheat in how they approach this, that their totalitarian dictatorship doesn't play by the rules. And the result is that they undercut and destroy a lot of American jobs. And many of you represent companies that have lost jobs because the Chinese refuse to have fair competition. So your voices are particularly important because you understand the complexity of dealing with the Chinese government and the Communist Party that runs that government. You understand the importance of being hard-nosed, practical business people. You understand that it's a very important project.
Let's give a big round of applause to our honorary chairman, Speaker Newt Gingrich. And now, actually, I have another very good news for you. And just get ready to listen to that. And yesterday, actually, I approached the legendary Steve Bannon to accept to be honorary chair of Republican Hindu Coalition, and it took him only 2 seconds to accept it. Let's give him a big round of applause. Let's all get up. So welcome the new honorary chair of Republican Hindu Coalition. Next thing, what you're going to see is, I was sort of part of it, but really did not, you all know, or most of you know, that at one time we were in printer circuit boards and printer circuit board assembly business, and we didn't really talk a whole lot about it because we moved on to our technology businesses, other businesses, not just technology businesses, with the IP and software and firmware and hardware, HMIs and PLCs. And I started thinking about manufacturing. That's actually one of my core expertise. And so I told that to Steve, where my history has been and what has happened to the circuit board industry. So he invited me to give a presentation to the committee, and I did, and it has taken off on from there. And just didn't even think about it. Maybe that's in a way, people call Hindus as pacifists. So we were pacifists in there and didn't really take an action then. By the way, Steve, I do have some news on that too. Some people did try to take an action in 2004. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But this was a very, very large industry. Yeah, lots of people were ex-employees of AVG who started forming these businesses, lots of businesses. And what you will hear, this is the video which we are premiering here, that actually what happened, and the leadership of both parties, whether it's Democrat or Republican, irrespective, from 2000 to 2007, America lost 3.54 million jobs, manufacturing jobs, and in our particular industry, just here in Chicago area, Elk Grove Village Center, we lost, as you will hear from the people who were involved there at that time, over 50,000 jobs, and nobody did anything about it. People, it was a premeditated, you'll see that video, it was a premeditated murder of American businesses and American jobs. And actually that attack was on, first attack, very, very, very precise attack, they're very smart people, was on the printed circuit boards and on printed circuit board assembly. So we are premiering that video, so let's go ahead and play that.
Media Director, RHC, standing right in front of 2400 Lodge Avenue, Elk Grove Village. 20 years ago, this place was a home for Circuit Systems, which was employing 800 people. Now, this is a company, it's a warehouse, distribution center of Mitsui, which has less than 50 people.
Same thing here with us. As a matter of fact, this area around Chicago had almost 150 circuit board shops and 100 assembly shops like we're in business today doing. At our peak, we had almost 300 employees, and in this general area, we probably had over 10,000 employees that are now a shadow of what they were at one time. Around 2,000 premeditated attack by the Chinese in our circuit board industry. Well, probably the same thing that's happened to us in our industry has happened to similar industries in this area. Probably employing over 50,000 people that have lost their jobs over that period of time, all due to Chinese products that have been
We are in the circuit board assembly plant near the village of Elk Grove, with Joe.
When we came under pricing pressure from China and their invasion, we ultimately ended up becoming traders and started importing products from China. We were importing almost $12 million of bare-frame circuit boards and $8 million of electronic assemblies. But over time, we came under more pricing pressure, and so we finally had to exit that business and lay off most of our employees. Mr. President, if we had sustained tariffs, we'd be able to build back our business to where it was before and bring back tens of thousands of jobs to America.
We are here in a circuit board assembly plant near Elk Grove Village. He is Mr. Bob Patel. He is the owner of Surya Electronics. Bob, can you manufacture motherboards for Windows, Mac?
Absolutely.
As you know, we are importing $40 billion of electronics from China. So can you manufacture them?
Absolutely. In China, the government subsidized
right track by imposing the tariff on China, but you have to sustain it for a long time. If you have sustained the tariff for a long term, then a company like ours, Surya Electronics and others, can invest money into the business and bring thousands of jobs back into the USA.
Let's hear from you. I've been filming many people since morning on the subject of like how China invaded this industry, and I heard that you were also in the same industry. I am in a building which is owned by you, AVG Group, and this has been abundant. So let's hear from your story, from your angle.
Thank you, Wanda. Yes, part of our business was in printed circuit boards and printed circuit board assembly. In fact, we were the third largest manufacturer of printed circuit boards in the United States, and also in printed circuit board assembly, we were among the top 20 about 20 years ago, and employed thousands and thousands of people. We had plants all over the country. There were plants, one of the plants which you're standing here, that is one of the plants. This entire building is about 60,000 square foot building. Did not have any business afterwards, after the Chinese invasion. There were about 15 people in this room. That's called the yellow room. So we were fortunate enough to have other businesses in electronics that were not affected because of our intellectual property, our own firmware and software and hardware, of course, specialty niche markets. And
I can just say that when I was walking in this portion of the building, I could see that at a given time, so many lives were getting their livelihood from here. More than 600 people working in this office.
That's right. There were about 600 people, more than 600 people that were employed in this 60,000 square foot building. And once again, today it's been donated to the community, the Hindu American, Indian American community in the western suburbs, northwestern suburbs, suburbs of Chicago. And they use this building for social activities. There's no question that we lost 4 million manufacturing jobs from 2000 to 2007. Ivy League economists and New York Times argue that we did not lose one job to China. It's all because of automation. You should ask the owners of those 5,000 companies just in our segment of the industry that closed during this period. And now that upjohn economist Susan Hausman has debunked your theory, so get off of it. Some in corporate America want a quick trade deal. I have one question for them. How does a trade deal with China bring American manufacturing back? In the spirit of Maharana Pratap and Ronald Reagan and all those champions of freedom, we have to act, and we have to act now. Mr. President, you know it instinctively. Just like aluminum and steel, if you want the electronics manufacturing industry to be revived and create millions of jobs, we need sustained tariffs. So Frank, how is it? So at this point, I will ask Vikram Aditya Kumar, my son, who is now the CEO and chairman of AVG Group of Companies, to come in and give his perspective on tariffs. See, many times, a lot of people, maybe I have an idea that we should take what he's going to say and put it in the face of Ivy League economists and New York Times. I think that's what maybe we ought to do. So, but for here, this purpose, I asked Vikram to actually bring in some products and to show, and not that, you know, if we did more automation, we are very highly automated. That if we did more automation, that we could bring it back, you know, all the other that electronic PC board industry. So, Vikram, here you go.
Thank you. Can we grab the presentation, please? Full screen, please. All right, thank you. So I'm here to talk a little bit about today for a couple minutes on the clear and present danger of what China is doing to us. As an American manufacturer, many of you sitting in here in this room have small to mid-sized businesses employing several hundred, several thousand employees throughout this room. And, you know, we were impacted over the years, many years, losing hundreds of thousands of jobs in the United States. In Chicagoland area alone, like we said, over 50,000 jobs lost because of this danger and this threat and this continuing threat that China brings to U.S. manufacturing. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of electronic products exported to the United States from China. You know, telephones, laptops, computers, HMIs, PLCs, LED products, transformers, printed circuit boards, many different type of products. Over $300 billion worth of electronic products that are exported from China into the United States, that if we have sustained tariffs and consistent tariffs and the right tariff codes for the right products, we can bring back hundreds of thousands of jobs back here in the United States. Next slide, please. So the president has made a good initiative initially with the implementation of tariffs, but it needs improvement. He needs to hear our voices, and that's why we're here collectively talking today about what products, from manufacturers like ourselves, what products need to be tariffed. Not just the components, not just the bare printed circuit boards, but the whole assembly of various electronic products. As one of the only manufacturing outfits left, ABG Group, in the United States in our space for HMIs and PLCs and various automation control products, the Chinese tariffs currently, as they exist, actually are negatively impacting us. We're one of the major suppliers in these products, competing against giant organizations such as Rockwell and Siemens and many different other organizations out there, and they all have moved their manufacturing out to China. We have made a commitment, and my father made a commitment many years ago, that we will not move anything to China. We will maintain, we are very proud of being an American manufacturer. So I wanted to show a couple of the products just to give an idea of, for those who are not as tech savvy, and just an overall view of what products and how we can bring back, and if you can't see that slide up there, but over 300,000 jobs just by having sustained tariffs and the tariffs on the correct, on the right products. So let me show you.
Could you focus on, so he's going to actually show the products. Zero in on the products so you can see the products.
So first off,
Hold on.
can everyone see that here? There we go.
There we go.
All right. This is called a human-machine interface, an HMI. All these type of products, this particular product is a specialized purpose computer that essentially controls and automates all manufacturing outfits in the United States, whether it be automotive like Ford, General Motors, packaging industries, pharmaceutical industry, you know, all small, mid-sized, and large businesses out there on all their machines utilize an HMI and a PLC, which is a programmable logic controller, to automate and to build cars, to build items, to manufacture in the United States. That's the final product itself, the final assembly. What, you know, inside it, and I have the bare boards inside, you have the motherboard. The motherboard of the HMI and all these electronic products inside laptops, inside HMIs, inside all industrial electronics, inside various type of electronic manufacturing equipment. These motherboards, you know, we manufacture these motherboards in the United States. We do the final assembly of the final product in the United States. What has been tariffed so far are the base printed circuit boards, which a lot of you in this room today are PCB company owners. We have been tariffed on these base boards. Raw components that go within the board, little resistors, little parts like this, penny parts, dollar parts, those also have been tariffed out there. Now, what happens is when manufacturers like AVG, like other ones like yourself out here, are being tariffed on these small components even, and these bare printed circuit boards, in fact, it makes it even more difficult for us to compete against China. All our bill of material costs have gone up by 25%. So when we're competing against China as itself, we're getting hurt by the current infrastructure and current setup of how the administration has put the tariffs on. But we're not saying, hey, stop tariffing these. We're saying tariff everything. If you're going to tariff everything. Make it difficult to bring back the, you know, to make it so that China cannot manufacture these products. Bring back the 300,000 jobs. Tariff the penny components. Tariff the printed circuit boards. Tariff the final assembly, which is actually the high-skilled, high-paying manufacturing jobs out there. That's what's important for the administration to understand, because that will bring back, literally, 296,000 jobs has been our study back in the United States, just in our field itself. So we asked the president to focus on sustained tariffs and go from a tier level, not only the base components, but from the top level manufacturing to the component level, and make it so that we can bring manufacturing back and make America great again.
Actually, I'll take a moment to go a little bit deeper into that as well. A lot of technologists and people who work in the PC board industry and PC board assembly industry, they will understand it, but you know, a lot of people who are not into the field, they are in finance and other businesses, they may not really totally get it. So I want you to zoom in on this. Okay? Now, that's an HMI. So that is the part, it's a finished good that gets installed on the machines. That is the first item that should be tariffed. What the mistake we have made, and I just wonder as to how that happens, is it the lobbyists or is it just lack of knowledge that the people who should be on the negotiating rooms should be manufacturing experts. The first item that should be tariffed in electronics are the finished goods, like this. Okay? Now that is not tariffed. Intentions were good. That is not tariffed. And what is tariffed are components. So, components here, that's what's tariffed. So that cost, in order to try to bring the manufacturing back, is in a way, by mistake I would say, Steve, I don't know what you would want to say that, but by mistake it's done wrong. They have left the tariffs, no tariffs on the final product. No tariffs. And you know, how are you going to bring the manufacturing, particularly high-level manufacturing, back if you leave the finished goods without a tariff? So what we say is we should tariff everything that comes from China. China is a huge big threat. So I'm kind of going over a little part of my presentation, which was going to come in later. But there was an interesting story. Since these products are mostly, except for AVG that does that right here, because we just would not give in. So, you know, even your Rockwells and Siemens and Mitsubishi's, of course, they all get this thing done in China. And so what, just about 2 months or 3 months ago, there was a news what the Chinese did. They inserted a little code in a chip. It's supposed to be audited, but they could not detect that this spy chip. So the product comes here with a spy chip and sending all kinds of information, collecting all kinds of data. Let's just assume this board is in a computer in a Department of Commerce establishment. What do you think is happening? So that's got to be stopped. Next, I take the opportunity to welcome Lieutenant General Quast to come in and give some remarks. Good to see a man in a uniform. I always love to see people in uniform.
Well, I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Thank you for the invitation. I have been asked to come and share with you the perspective of national security with regard to this conversation. And I don't come to you just as a man in uniform, because all of our defenders share this same project of being great peacemakers by being so protected that we never have to have any violence as part of our future. That is first and foremost the important point to take away, is that if we do this right, there's peace and prosperity for all of humanity and all of those that share this value, that every human being is created with equal value and respect. And if we build on that common platform, great things can happen. But the Air Force think tank, which is what I'm here to represent, has been studying this for many years because we study competition. And this story is as old as time. And I don't just come to you as an American that understands what it means to be vulnerable, which is what you are all experiencing. You are experiencing the vulnerability of your work and your companies being dealt with by predatory competition that lies, cheats, and steals to get an advantage. And I understand that more personally than you might think, because I did not grow up in America. I grew up in a small tribe in Cameroon, West Africa, up near where Boko Haram operates, and I got to live a life as a child of insecurity, where if you do not have power, you must submit to the values of others. And this story that we're talking about, historically, has happened forever. Since the beginning of mankind, great civilizations have competed with one another, and it is an infinite competition. It will never end. And we will be competing 1,000 years from now. It may be a slightly different conversation, and maybe there will be some different people in the room in 1,000 years, although some of these beautiful young ladies will still be here because they will live forever. But I will tell you that what is happening here is that China is attacking us with a strategy that we do not recognize. And the strategy is much bigger than just the electronics manufacturing element of our societies. It is a strategy to undercut the industrial base and the economy of their competition, and to tap into the global markets to make their profits better. Because all national security is economic. It is not about the weapons, it is about the economy. And my job is to protect the economy, the government, and the citizens and sovereign soil. And in a world where we are so interconnected, we must act together. As was already said, India and America, we are both responsible democracies. We have no territorial ambitions. We are aligned in our industrial bases to uplift the human condition. But China, across every industry, whether it is solar panels or electronics or turbines for wind power or space, they have designed a strategy to insidiously undercut the industrial base. And they are stealing away the power of our civilizations. Now, in every great competition like this, there is a role that the government must play, because private entrepreneur capitalism cannot solve some of these problems when you have a communist government that controls all of their companies and can funnel money and strategy and vision that can beat any one small company. And this is what has happened in America in the past. There's historical examples for this. This is not the only time in our history that we have been able to do something to solve the problem we're facing today. Teddy Roosevelt did this when he moved from a wooden ship navy with sails to an iron navy with steam and coal. FDR, our great president during World War II, did this, building the aerospace industry. We have a strong Navy because we have a strong industrial base of the merchant marine and the shipbuilding industry. We have a strong Air Force because we have a strong industrial base of an aerospace industry. And in the digital age we're moving into, in this 21st century, where information and energy are the golden pots of economic growth and development, we must have a government that is willing to help us in all of these ways, to defend the companies that make the free market entrepreneurial spirit of innovation and invention the dominant economic journey to bless our families and our civilizations with meaningful work, protecting that work from predators that will steal, lie, and cheat to get an advantage, and to help us build a global economy where we all can tap into the blessings because we have security. And that is my message to you, and I'm here to help by building power that defends these values, that every human being is created equal, with equal value and respect and dignity, and that we must partner as nations that share these values, or China, with 1.4 billion people, may have a competitive advantage. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time.
Okay, next we have a Skype call. That is the person who will be addressing us here is Kyle Bass, and let's get him on, then I'll speak.
Hyder? 1 second, hold on. Okay. There we are.
Just open the Skype app. नीचे Skype का Skype open कर नीचे you see the app just open the blue icons yeah but open the icon.
Hello, Hyder, you see me? 1 second, hold on. Okay. I'm going to turn on the light. I can see you.
We cannot see you.
I see your computer screen now.
No, he's
sharing your Skype. So I think he's dialing your Skype and he did it. You're not
This sharing.
take with him.
ठीक है